Okay, welcome to Road Atlanta. This is a short layout in the Ruf C-Spec. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through a lap of the track with a 59.0 time. This is in default weather conditions, so it's not necessarily going to be the weather or the time for the actual race week. What I'm going to do is go through each corner. Now, I don't get every corner absolutely right. I think probably the top guys are going to do at least a second and a half faster than this. But it's my thoughts as we start the week on how to drive the track, making note of mistakes that I make along the way, but trying to give a fairly solid idea of how to drive the track, at least a baseline to start from as you begin the week. And as we come past the line here, that is the view from the passenger seat. Okay, we are about to go into the first turn. The crucial thing about the first turn is that you hit the apex. If you don't hit the apex, the chances are you're going to run really wide. There's a lot of grass, big grassed area on the left, and the chances are you're going to go off on that section, so you really have to hit the apex. As you look ahead now, you've got the 300, 200, 100 markers. You can see beyond that there's a dark area on the track. Now, and you have to bear in mind here, all my references are basically when the front of the car hits a particular marker from where I'm looking. So as I get on, as I meet that black area with the front of the car, that's my reference point. Not when it goes under the front wheels or whatever. When I can visually see that. So when I hit that darker area, that's when I'll start to brake. I'll go down to 4th gear. I will not go up to 6th gear in this straight section. I've seen people go up to 6th here and actually cost them time. So I keep it in 5th. As I hit that black area, or that dark grey area, that's when I'll start to brake. You need to brake quite hard. You brake more than you really feel that you need to. There's a little kink in the track on the left. I think really, I mean, I don't do it yet, but I think that, as it says, I think it's a decreasing radius corner, so you really should be trying to do a late apex and hit that apex a little bit later than with a normal with a a standard corner. So maybe the turning point is actually that kink, the little kink in the track. I'm turning in a little bit earlier than that, and that's kind of compromising the corner. That's something to play around with. To figure your actual turning point, how late you're going to be up to that kink. But I think most likely you want to brake hard enough so that you can turn in on that kink and hit your apex. If you're missing your apex, you're going too fast, or you're turning in too late, or both. But the real thing you've got to concentrate on here is hitting that apex. Don't obsess about speed going through here. It's the same with one or two other corners. You've just really got to make sure that you hit the apex. Even if you feel you're going really slow, make sure you hit that apex, and you'll get that time back later on. So I'll just run up to this a little bit closer to the up to that the end of this section. Now there you see that little bit of kink in that white line. There's a white line just running from the left hand side of the car. There's a kink there. I always try to keep my attention focused on that line for two reasons. One, I'm looking for the kink, but also I'm making sure that I keep myself pushed left. If you start looking at the apex, your view is going to start dragging yourself to the right. So you have to be really careful to keep yourself pinned as much as possible over onto that left. You could even go a little bit further than I go. You could experiment with that to see how you can. I mean, it's going to rotate the car a little bit, so maybe that would actually be a helpful thing to do. But try to slow it down so that you can turn in on that as you're just about to hit that kink and still get on the apex and do a late apex up the hill. But again, the key factor to bear in mind here is that you get to hit the apex. Okay, now coming up the hill, there are basically two lines that I've been looking at here. One is the conventional line of going over to the right. The downside I felt with that was that as you turn in, you've got to go right across the track. So, and it's a blind corner, so you're really feeling for the corner. But I tried the middle, going up more of a middle line. I found when I turned in, I couldn't get straight into the next corner entrance. So that was kind of compromising my entrance. So I've gone back to going wide right. You want to again make sure that you're pushed as wide right as you can. Now, again, because it's a blind corner, you really have to get a marker down. If you look at those trees in the centre of the road, just starting to appear, the left one forms a V. Okay, you'll understand what I'm saying as we go through it. As the base of that V starts to emerge, that's when you're turning in. You're coming off the gas, you're turning in, and you start looking for the entrance to the corner. This is the kind of corner that you have to really drive an awful lot in order to be able to just know where it is. The key to it is just get off the gas, come inside. It should be a straight run into the corner. You want to be on that left curb. Just run it ahead a bit. Okay, now you see the V starting to appear on that tree there. That's the cue to just be easing off the gas and start the turn inside. You want to be really as wide left as you can on this curb as you're coming over the top. Now I've dropped it down a gear. You really have to start turning in straight away. You can't afford to look for the corner. The big mistake you can make here is to be looking for the corner. If you wait until you can see the corner, then it's too late. You're going to compromise it. There's a particular line you want to develop as you come through this complex, where you can start to really accelerate as you make you've got a right turn here, then there's a left turn. When you come to that left turn, you want to really be as hard as possible on the gas. There's a short straight here, but there's a longer straight that exits from it. It's one of those things I still haven't quite figured out. It's very easy to pick up a 1x on this corner. You've got to basically risk that. You've got to force yourself to turn in, even if you think you're turning in early, even if you think that I can't see the corner yet, so I can't turn in. You've got to be disciplined to get the car turned in. It's much better to pick up a 1x every now and then than to turn in too late and basically be struggling around the corner, and possibly even ending up having to cut the course. Very important. You can take quite a bit of the curb, but it will penalise you with the 1x if you take a little bit too much. You can unsettle the car a little bit too. Again, it's one of those things you have to drive it quite a few times to really get it down. Okay, now exiting that turn, I definitely think if you can get a little bit more elbow room as you're coming around that corner to help with the acceleration, that's going to be a really positive thing. Again, it's just practicing that little section there to get yourself turned around that corner and be as hard as possible on the gas without spinning it. Now in this section we need to be getting over onto the left. There's a little curbing on the left coming up. Now we want to be turning in just before that curbing. You don't want to wait until you're actually on top of it. You want to be turning in just a little bit before that, because you want to get onto the curbing on the right. You want to use this curbing on the right and then on the left as you're turning in. If you have to use the brake, then you can do that to rotate the car a little bit. But if you end up using the brake, then you've done something wrong. It's it's not a massively important part of the track to get absolutely right, but it does help you a lot if you can get the last section after the left hand turn. You really want to be maximising that little run down there. Okay, now here's probably, I would say, probably the most important section coming up. At this point in time, I'm in 4th gear. This engine's kind of struggling for 5th. I don't tend to go up to 5th, because as soon as you go up to 5th, you're going straight back down to 4th. You know, you go 5th, well, actually go all the way back down to 3. So, you know, it might be worthwhile going up to 5th, it might not. The obvious line here is to be tight on this apex coming up when you're making the right turn. I don't tend to do that. I tend to be a little bit wider, because if you look beyond that to the area with the cones, the line of cones, I want to be wide left there, and I want to be as straight against those as I possibly can. I don't want to be hitting that coned area straight on. I want to be coming at it parallel to them. Now the reason for that is there's a long, basically from here there's a long straight down to this chicane, and you want to be hard on the gas from the moment you go past those cones until you drop down into the chicane area. And the way to do that is to be coming at it from a wide area there. Again, it's one of those sections that you need to drive a few times to really get it, but in my experience, if you're tight on the inside as you're coming around that section, you get washed out to the left. So in this section that leads up to it, what I want to be doing is just a little bit off this curb, down to 4th gear, sorry, down to 3rd gear. And again, I've seen people go for the next section in 4th gear, but I think 3rd gear is better. So I'll leave a little space as parallel as you can to those cones, and then you want to be flat on the gas. Now you can see I'm not as wide as I'd like to be, and that does cause me a problem later on. Now basically, as you pass this last cone, you really want to be flat, hard on the gas. This is a really tricky section, it's kind of deceptive. You've got to really force yourself to keep the wheel turned in on the corner. You can't afford to relax the wheel. Even though you think you can do, even though you think you've got this corner beat, I can just relax the wheel, you really can't do that. If you do, you'll just wash out left. Even in this example, you'll see me wash out a little bit left on the grass. Still a legal lap, but it's only just a legal lap. I take completely the wrong line exiting this section and rejoining the main track. I should be much tighter than I am, which costs me time. So it's a really treacherous section of track. It's possible as you're turning in, you've got to be very careful and feel the car, because sometimes it will start to oversteer, and you've really got to just relax it and let it out a little bit. Even if you take a 1x and exit, you've got to be prepared for that little bit of oversteer if it feels you're too tight on your turning. But this is the line to take. Being wide here, you'll steer wide for a little bit, and then you'll come in. And the idea then is to keep as tight on the apex as you can, and really avoid washing out to the left. Now you saw there I just washed out a lot to the left. When you're driving that section, the important thing, as I said, get yourself wide left at the coned area. You'll want to steer wide left a little bit as you pass that, and then turn in. You don't want to turn in too early. If you turn in too early, you'll get washed out left. So you've just got to judge that point right. And when you're coming around that last corner, you want to be tighter on the inside. But again, it's one of those. It's a tricky section. It's a lot of people will end up getting washed out left off the track there, I feel. Okay, this is the chicane. This is quite a difficult section for me. There's no obvious brake marker for me here. As we're going down this hill, there's kind of like the section between this. There's like a valley running through the track here, and you'll be able to discern a kind of a whiter patch, a whiter area in that valley. It's hard to really explain unless you actually have actually driving it, but it's kind of a lighter area or a different coloured area. You've really got to work hard to find a spot here that you yourself can replicate. But when you reach that spot in the valley area, you got to brake hard down to, I think you might be to fourth gear by this point, or fifth gear. Actually, I think you're in fifth gear. Drop it down to fourth. Brake a lot, really hard. Then in that section, I think you pretty much divide it into two sections of braking. Maybe the first two-third is moderate to hard, and the last third of it is really hard. You've really got to push hard on the brake and take off an awful lot of speed. At which point you're getting it down to third gear. Important that you keep the car pushed wide, as wide right as you can. Ideally, you want to get into that rumble strip. And then as you're either on top of that, the last white line that goes across the track, or either as you go over the top of it or you just past it, you need to be turning in. You can take a lot out of the apex as you turn in. The idea then, in fact, I'll just run through it. Okay, now ideally I want to be a little bit further to the left than I am. Again, it's a tough corner to get right. You've got to really take a lot of your speed off dropping into that section. If you can get a little bit further to the left as you turn in, and again you can take an awful lot out of the apex here. As you come across there, you should be really in a better position to get even harder on the gas. It's a dangerous section because if you're a little bit too greedy with the gas, you're going to spin, and it's a pretty, it's not a good place to spin. You'll could end up in all sorts of difficulties here. As you exit this little section, ideally you want to just drift out a little bit onto the rumble strip on the left, and then there's a bridge over the track, and there's a sign in the middle of that, and you really want to be aiming the car under that. You see the yellow, red and white sign there. We're basically aiming at that and we're coming underneath that. Okay, as you crest this hill, you can get a bit light. You've got to be prepared to relax the gas pedal, otherwise it will spin and spin pretty heavily. Now as I drop down here, there's a little bit of rumble strip on the left. I try to get on that to give myself a better line into the last corner. It also helps to get the car rotated a little bit. Now this is kind of a work in progress corner for me. I feel what I need to do here, just don't turn in too early. Just let it go a little bit past that rumble strip, then turn in. I feel like you have to divide that section between the rumble strip on the left and the apex on the right. You have to divide that into two sections. The first section is kind of moderate throttle, and the second half of that is when you have to be hard on it, or as hard as you possibly can. Maybe not 100%, but you want to really be hard on the throttle in that last half. And if that means just being more gentle on the first, then so be it. Okay, you see the little bit of a kink in the track there. That's maybe a good marker to start thinking about. Yeah, this is where I need to be turning in from. As you're turning in, you want to take an awful lot of the rumble strip, a lot of the apex. I don't take as much as I should do in this section. The danger here is running wide left and picking up a 1x. Very easy to do, very easy also to turn up spinning across the track. So at this point I'm just maybe relaxing the gas a little bit, getting it turned in, still giving it quite a bit of gas, but being mindful of the fact that I've got to hit the apex. You know, and again, you want to be hard in that second section. You want to be as hard as you possibly can be, while making sure that you stay on that on the apex. You can take more of the rumble strip on exit than you probably feel is possible, but it is doable. But again, you've got to be careful of picking up that 1x. It can get really treacherous on there. I'm not sure in a race that I'd want to be that aggressive unless I really had to be. It's a very easy place to lose it. So I'll just run to its last section. Okay, that is a lap of Road Atlanta short. Again, there are a few areas where I can improve, and there's definitely a lot more time to be gained in that. But you know, driving like that and get you a 59 second time, which is, you know, should be pretty competitive. And again, you can just refine it and just, you know, experiment with one or two ideas in there. So I hope that was useful. Thank you.